like that kind of thing that happens because I am so used to watching things at 60 or 120 frames. It it can feel a little like unfinished or broken kind of. And I have seen examples of, here's this scene. I've seen editors do this and filmmakers. Here's this scene in 60, here's this scene in 24. The 60 looks like crap. It really does. Like I
Yeah.
understand why it's shot in 24, but when there's large pans of motion, I want to have the 60 frames so I can see all that stuff in the background that's not just set dressing. So there are some times that in filmmaking, I think it's a disservice, but I understand it's part of the formula. There's a reason a Manhattan and a Negroni are made the way they are. It's because if you fuck with it, it tastes weird. 24 frames is the way films are made because for the predominant amount of the run times, it looks good. But then as soon as you
That's
have these large swings of motion, it looks a little and it
okay.
drives
So
me up a wall.
okay. I'm going to say this. First of all, opinion wise, completely disagree with you. Because 24 frames is what it should look like, opinion wise. Factually, I actually think that that the reason why we picked 24 frames 100 years ago when they were starting to get sound sync and starting to like get into that, like we need a standardized level to play these back at to make it look is it was sound sync mostly, right? So like if you look at silent stuff, it's more jittery because they didn't
Sure.
care. But once you get into sound sync, you needed a standardized time frame, right? 24 was the minimum that we could trick our eyes with mentally into thinking it was fluid motion. And they needed to, where you and I are working on a film with film, right? When you're shooting at 24 frames per second on a 100-foot mag, you get 4 minutes. If you're shooting at 48 frames or 60 frames, you're going to get 2 minutes. And so
So
you're then buying twice as much film. So they were like, what's the lowest amount and then it was the standard for 70 years until we got digital because it was cheap. It was the cheapest way to do it at a rate that
that's what I was.
tricked
Yeah,
our brains. Then you get into digital and you get into video games. I think video games have had as much to do with this as digital
they
has.
absolutely have,
And
and a lot of the content I watch is based around that. So as soon
right.
as I don't see 60, I'm like,
Yeah. So
ugh.
So from a like factual standpoint, there's no more reason why it needs to be that. But for like I have been obsessed with film for the last 30 years of my life. Film movies. I've been obsessed with movies. I am like pretty stuck on this standard of 24 frames per second opinion wise. That's why I say I disagree with you opinion wise, but factually, like it's just a matter of like, like I'm not, I might
Well, no,
cut
no,
this.
hold on. So I agree with you, but I also saw that filmmaker. Like I saw a couple videos where they showed the same scene in
Mm-hmm.
60, and it
Yeah, yeah.
didn't look good. It
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
Everything was synced up well, but it
Was
looked
it digitally
bad.
okay, was it digitally enhanced to be 60 or was it, because there's
No,
probably a difference.
This was the same filmmaker shooting on digital,
Okay.
but just shooting in 24 and
And
then
then
shooting
shooting.
the exact same scene in 60. The
Okay.
60 looked bad, but it could just be that specific scene because I'll give you the example. The only time where this like was when there was large pans of motion.
Right.
When there is small amounts of motion in a scene, characters moving in like the midground or foreground,
Right.
I don't I don't see a lot of just gross. I like how it looks. It's only when there's larger motion where the 24 frames just can't keep up and it looks like a slideshow in comparison to nice, soft, fluid motion.
Okay.
And I, like you, understand why it is 24.
Yeah.
But the stick in the mud, this is the way it's supposed to be, I can appreciate coming from the culinary or cocktail world. A
Yeah, yeah,
Negroni is a frickin' Negroni because it's balanced the way it is. It's not actually a balanced cocktail. It is a
right,
bitter Campari mess. But I like that flavor. So for
right.
me, it makes sense. So, like you
So,
said, for opinion,
yeah,
tracks.
yeah.
Practically, no.
Okay, so what I
So
want to
it's a
say,
9 and not a 10, you know?
what I want to
Yeah.
say back to the and I have not really watched anything played back at 60 frames per second, right? Or whatever. So I don't really know entirely what that looks like. But do you know what pan and scan is?
Hmm.
Yeah. Pan and scan used to drive me fucking crazy. Um because you'd get these movies that were shot in widescreen format for theaters, and then you would get them on VHS, and they wouldn't, people were like, well, you're leaving all the black at the bottom and the black at the top, and like that's weird. So people would want to get the full screen, and with full screen you got what was called pan and scan, which is where they were digitally making it a square. So like what you would do is, like, if you had two people in a widescreen shot on for theater, think about the scene in Heat where Al Pacino's here and De Niro's here. Well, all of a sudden when you square that up, you're cutting most of, if not all of, both of them out. So what they would
Hmm.
then do is they would digitally go, okay, well, Al Pacino's talking, and then digitally go, Robert
Yeah.
De Niro's talking, and it had this very weird motion. And the very little bit I've seen of 60 frames per second has reminded me of that. Now,
Yeah.
your brain might be trained well enough you might not mind that as much as I do, but that, because that does have that, what you're describing as that, like, more detail but weird fluidity. Like, that is what is going on when you talk about that, because it's a static shot that you've then
Hmm.
made a motion shot, and you're not doing it slowly. Like, if you do it slowly, you don't notice it as much if you do a slow pan digitally.
Yeah.
But if you go, like, we've played around with digital scanning or panning and stuff because you have to for editing, on these
Yeah.
things. I always try to do it slowly, but if you do, like, like in over the course of a 5-second clip, if you're like, okay, to the other side, it looks weird.
No,
At
no,
least
no,
to
no, no,
me.
it totally does. No, no,
So
the pan and scan thing, I agree because I spent a decent amount of time in television and film or
yeah,
television production,
yeah,
but I also worked in the electronics, consumer electronics industry where like in the early mid 2000s, pan and scan was big and
yeah.
flat screen, widescreen televisions were just becoming something that wealthy people put in their homes.
Yeah.
And are your notifications on for your iMessage?
Uh, I have my I have my I
We're
turn
about to
my
find out.
sound off.
This is the video I'm talking about.
Oh, I'll watch it. I'll watch
So
it. Maybe I'll
this is
link to
the
it in the show notes
exact,
too.
it's the exact same scene side by side 2460.
Okay.
The 60 looks
Weird.
jarring, fast, weird, too smooth, fake. The
Yep.
24 looks right.
Right.
And that's a 4-year-old video. So like it's not even modern, super modern methods.
Yeah.
So for me, I understand why 24 exists, but because my detail-oriented brain wants to see everything and everywhere, when it was going like this,